Dobro jutro, pa pozdravljeni vsem. My name is Andy Hunt Vodopivec. I'm British, but I've lived here since 1998, quite a long time. So I'm married, I have two kids, and with my business partner, Rob, we set up a company called Coffee Cup Consulting, where we offer our services to Slovene companies to internationalize their business, especially in the UK, France, and Africa. So that's me in a nutshell. I will just share my screen with you. Just bear with me one moment. So, and what I would like to talk to you today is regarding British culture. So I have 15 minutes and I will do a whirlwind tour of British culture, which is always a bit tricky. But as a Brit living in Slovenia for many years, I can now obviously offer you some insights into the cultural aspect, which I think is really, really important for doing business in the UK. We live in Europe, yes, but every country has its own way of doing things. You go to a meeting in the UK, France, Germany, Italy, it's very, very different. And I'm a huge believer in first impressions. So do make a good first impression in the UK. I've personally been involved in some real horror stories with, one Slovene, but also non-Slovenes going to the UK and making a real hash of things. So I've just gone through who I am. Coffee Cup Consulting. Why? Everything starts with a coffee. As you know, in Slovenia, it's gremo na kavo. It could be teacup consulting, but in this part of the world, coffee is still the status drink. So, and all good business relationships start with a coffee. So it's less formal. It creates the trust, which is also very, very key in UK business culture, and it's very international at heart. So, hence, Coffee Cup Consulting. Now, I will ask, is Britishness a state of mind rather than just an accident at birth? Yeah, a bit of an unusual kind of statement, but we'll try and answer some of that today and see where we come up with it. I don't really know. It could be a bit of both. You all know this fellow on the right, Hugh Laurie from Blackadder, so I think that gives quite a good insight as to what to expect. Okay, so just really the key principles. I tried to encompass British culture in 3 words. It was quite difficult, but I came up with politeness, courtesy, and quite conservative. So I think in a nutshell, that's what you really have to expect with British culture. They're not like other, let's say, southern Mediterranean countries. So you be very aware of this. They are polite, as you know. They're very they're very courteous. So no, after you. I think you just need to look at the Brits queuing for buses in London, and you'll see why. And they're quite conservative, so don't expect too much flamboyancy from them. They're quite stiff upper lip, as we say. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know, but that's how it is. They're open, I would say friendly, but also reserved. And this reservedness often comes across as them also being unfriendly, when in fact it's not. It's, I believe, maybe a lack of confidence at the beginning. So this kind of reservedness, conservatism can come across as being quite unfriendly at the beginning of the meeting. And I've heard this numerous times from various colleagues saying, yeah, they're nice, but a bit unfriendly at times. So just bear that in mind. But they are more open, I would say, than any other European counterparts. I really prefer going to a UK meeting than, for example, and this is no with disrespect to the French, but a French meeting. I speak French as well, so I know both sides. I like UK meetings. They're open. There's a lot of humour and irony, which I think can shock a few people. I think you've got to be very aware of that. Some of the humour and irony can be very close to the edge. It can be close to that red line, and it can shock and maybe sometimes cause offence. But I think that reservedness, that conservatism is counterbalanced with some humour and irony and cracking jokes in meetings. So do be aware of that. And if you also like that, go with the flow. The Brits love nothing more than a good old joke and a good old laugh during the meeting. So be aware of that. I would say they're also very logical and rational. They're not irrational, although some of the decision making later is often irrational. They do like that logic. They do like that rational. why? I believe it comes from, maybe from a couple of centuries ago. A little island in the middle of nowhere in the North Sea ended up being a dominant power for many years. So I think they have that planning. I think they have that traveling instinct and that logical and rational. When you go to a meeting, know your product offering inside out. Know what you're talking about. Don't come with half-baked ideas or half-baked presentations of your product. So logical and rational. And I like to call it informal formality. Yes, they're generally quite informal, the Brits, but they still have that kind of British formality of it. It's subtle. So I call it informal, but there is still a structure to which you must abide to. So be very aware of that. Now, the hierarchy, I think this is pretty much, this has changed a lot, I think, over the last, I would say, 20 years. I was in the UK back in the late 80s, early 90s. Things have changed a lot, but I would say there's a much flatter hierarchy than in the EU. Yes, there's always a big boss at the top, but generally it's very horizontal, and the gap between the next director and the horizontal management and the big CEO, MD is quite high. So you won't have that very strict hierarchical structure that you can find in many other EU countries, particularly in Germany and in France. I would say decision makers have great respect. If you meet with a very good British CEO, MD, he will be there because he is talented. He's been there because he's climbed up the ladder. He's there because he's seen it all, and he is competent. He's not there because of nepotism, knowing somebody else, or political decisions or political parties. He will be there because he's damn good, he's competent. Be aware of that. You will be talking to people who know what they're doing and know what they're saying. But this, in my view, is very, very good. I've had great managers, I've had really bad managers, but they are very good at leading, managing, and mentoring. So when you're in a meeting, be very aware of that. They will have a team around them, and they are very, very focused on showing the management side, on delegation. They won't boss people about generally, and they like to lead. So that makes things much easier for you, and you need to integrate into that kind of thinking. It's not a autocratic dictatorship kind of style where do this, do that, do that. No, it's very, very different. But this has its benefits in my view. You'll get much faster decision making, even to the point where in your first or second meeting, the MD or the director will actually make a decision on the spot in the meeting. Now, that's very unusual. I've had a lot of experience in other countries where it takes many, many meetings and it has to go back up to the holding company or go back up to the CEO. So faster decision making is always very, very, very good. A bit of a touchy subject, but there's still a class structure in the UK. I think you need to understand that and appreciate that. I.e., what I mean by class structure is which school did you go to, which university did you go to, maybe which company did you start your training. So there is an underlying class structure, and that will become very, very apparent. If someone asks you, oh, where did you go to school? Oh, what uni? Then it basically sets the element and puts you in a particular box. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but it will have a huge influence as to how they perceive you and how they approach you. So that class structure is key. Invisible rules still apply. Yeah, the Brits can be a bit sneaky sometimes. You don't always know exactly what they're thinking, but there are still invisible rules, which I won't go into now. But it's sometimes, when you call a cat, it is a cat. In England, when you call a cat, it could be a bit of cat, a bit of dog. So be a little careful and don't take everything to face value. Now, the first contact, again, this is very, very important, especially for Slovene companies. Rob and I have seen it time and time again. Use email, obviously that's the best. Be short, concise, and state your intention very, very clearly. This is really, really key. I've seen people send huge emails, 2-page email. No one has time to read them. No one will read them. So please, one paragraph, 4 or 5 lines at the most, and state your intention clearly. Use first names. Dear Helen, don't go into too much formality. Things have changed a lot. So I wouldn't use, oh, dear Mrs. Smith or dear Mrs. Jones. Just go, dear Helen. It creates a bit of closeness. Particularly use good grammar, no spelling mistakes. There's no excuse for this. I've seen terrible emails, newsletters being sent out by CEOs riddled with spelling mistakes. You will not be taken seriously in English if you make really glaring, eye-popping mistakes. And they will say, well, this company didn't even take time to check its English. They are not worthy. I really couldn't care less. So be very, very careful of that, and spend a bit of time with a British guy or a native speaker to check it. Impression is.
Andy, when you write an email, should you write like the first 2 sentences, about the weather, or ask about their health, or
No.
something polite in the beginning? No.
No, personally, I wouldn't. I would always start an email by saying who you are, where you come from, i.e. Ljubljana, and tell them where it is. At this stage, I wouldn't put any superfluous information about the weather, how they're feeling. It's very direct, very succinct. So impression is key. Set trust quickly. It's all about trust. It's all about approach. The UK is a very competitive market, so be aware of that. So you've got to be very concise, planning, and tell them what you want very, very quickly. They will appreciate that. And the Brits are very receptive to new ideas, to new products, to new business. So also be aware of that, and that how you do that is key in being successful. Then plan a calm phone call later on. Again, I would, this is really, really important. Don't get a junior salesperson to do it. Get someone who knows what they're talking about. Get the CEO or the MD or a top director. Do it calmly. Do it at a certain time. Generally 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon is good. And be very confident. Don't just call in a really crowded, loud office, which I've seen many, many times. It won't go down very well. So it's all about approach and impression. So dress code, yeah, again, I found this, I thought it was quite funny. Of course, this is going from the very casual to the very kind of aristocratic bourgeois. But I would say business casual, cocktail attire and business attire is what you would wear. Maybe if you're a very young startup and a very hip and, for example, IT or design company, you might go in smart casual. Probably better to do that than go in a business attire or a suit. Generally, don't really need a tie anymore. So a good classic suit, leather shoes, and shirt is perfectly okay. But look smart. It's all about impression, entering the room. I couldn't find the same for the ladies, which was quite peculiar. But big one. At the bottom, you have business casual and smart. So again, it's a lot of this is common sense. It. Look nice. It makes a good impression. Now the meeting, again, always a bit nerve-wracking, but the Brits do like punctuality, so be on time. If you're on the tube and you're going to be late, just give them a call to say you're going to be 5-10 minutes late. The traffic in London, as you know, is notoriously bad on the tube and also on the roads and on the buses and by car, like in any other cosmopolitan city in the UK. So punctuality is key. Be confident and not overbearing. It's really interesting when I see how people walk into a room for a meeting. It's how you walk in, that confidence, but not overbearing, backslapping. Hey, how you doing? Just be very careful with that. We're not in the southern Mediterranean countries where that probably goes down quite well. And even to an extent to the Western Balkans, who are quite physical people. The Brits are not. They value their personal space. So just give it time. Don't go in charging like a bull in a china shop. Just be very, very correct. Classic handshake, eye contact, the usual, nothing particularly difficult there. Value their personal space. I've had a couple of examples where I had some people literally go and sit right next to the CEO and all over him, and to the point where the CEO had to literally get up and go across and move to the other side of the table because this guy was in his face. He thought it was actually the right thing to do. It was actually completely the wrong thing to do. I personally would avoid the European cheek kicks. This can end up in disaster. and just best avoided at the first time, from experience as well. Business cards, I think generally hand them out. I don't think it has to be with two hands. That's more Asian. Just hand them out formally throughout the meeting. People like that. So let's come on to the meeting management. I personally think it's informal yet structured, which I like. Expect some humor and some banter. This is often the case in UK meetings, even at quite high level. This will offset maybe the nervousness a bit and make it more fun. And also, as I said before, make fun of yourself as well. If you can go along with it, they love it. So do expect a bit of silly joking around and the weather and the football and not to mention who lost yesterday. But know your complete value proposition is, again, a great deal of common sense. When you go into a meeting, know your product inside out, know the technical details, know your pricing structure, know your discount structure, and know what value you bring to the company. We'll go through this in detail later, and Rob and I will go through this, but this is really, really key. Don't waste their time. They will appreciate if you know things inside out, and it's concise, precise, and structured. It's rational. Brits are quite cautious. I think it goes back to this conservatism, I think, and kind of stiff upper lip. They won't give much away at the beginning, so don't open up too soon as well in your negotiations. Just wait a bit. Don't go in and give it all, put all your cards on the table. Keep an ace up your sleeve. So don't open up too soon. I would strongly recommend this. Even if you think you've got the best product in the world, the best service, and you think that there's nothing like it in the universe, just take your time. I would also be very careful. Don't patronize, don't over exaggerate. I've had personal experience of this before. Don't exaggerate, because there's always other competitors. We'll come to that as well. And don't say that this is the most unique thing on the planet. They will not believe you. So, and don't patronize. That doesn't go down very well at all. And beware also if they say, oh, that's interesting, or vagueness, be careful of that. That means they're probably not that interested. So either back off a bit or take another angle, or use that as a warning sign for them to let you know that it doesn't interest me. So just be aware of that as well. Of course, after the meeting, again, very, very, very common sense stuff. Always follow up with a polite email, very short, just, hey, it was nice to meet them. This always goes down very well. Don't order people about. Don't start saying, well, I'd like this person to do that, to send me that. I've seen this before as well, and it doesn't go down very well. They are quite placid, the Brits, and do not like being told what to do. Again, I think it goes back to this hierarchy. It's very flat. If you're going to tell me what to do, then you really need to prove it. And who are you to tell me what to do from another country? So be very polite and delegate, but in a nice way. Don't give ostentatious gifts. Don't bribe. That doesn't go down well at all in the UK, and is thoroughly frowned upon. So be very aware of that. Yes, a bottle of wine, that's fine, but anything larger, be very, very wary of that. They will not like that at all. Corruption's pretty low in the UK. Of course it does exist, but be careful. And follow up very quickly. This is also one thing that I found Slovene companies not always good at doing, is following up with the documents, with some pricing, with some discounting, with samples. Do it really, really quickly. It shows reactivity. It shows that you're really serious. And this, do very, very quickly afterwards and efficiently. Send it by UPS. Invest a bit of money so that it looks nice when it arrives. So, and don't be afraid to chase and remind. Call them, email them politely, and keep the pressure. The Brits prefer constant but small pressure. What they don't like is pressure all at once, boom, landing on top of their head. So it's kind of the drip approach. So don't be afraid to do that. So you've done your business and everything's looking good. The Brits do like their pubs, as you probably all know, and they do like socializing after work. So a lunch or a dinner, even a business dinner is more than common these days. And you will for sure say, let's go down the pub. So this is, and again, expect banter and lively debates on the weather, on the football, on the politics. Politics is generally openly spoken about in the UK, so no problem there. Again, be prepared to buy rounds, a round of drinks for everybody. Be very careful in London. It could be very, very expensive. It can go up to, I've seen 9-10 pints a pint. So if there's 10 of you, that's 100 quid basically. So do have cash in your pocket, because you look a bit silly if you don't have the cash and then the credit card machine doesn't work. So be prepared to buy around. It shows integration into the British culture, but be careful. It can get a bit loud and a bit hairy. The Brits do like drinking their beer, so do pace yourself. But it also, I find, it gives a very good back channel diplomacy in the pub. You can chit chat about other people and other things in, let's say, an acceptable and accepted manner. So there's an equal setting from the boss to the staff, and I find it's also a very, very good way of understanding, let's say, some deeper understanding about the company, who does what, in a very relaxed and actually structured environment over a beer. So that's perfect. Enjoy yourself and go with the flow. That's me. And I'm so very, very sorry to have run out of time, and thank you awfully for your time and attention. I'll be delighted to take any questions. That's a Brits for you, but hey, thank you very much for listening. Cheers.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks. So if I recap just briefly, it's really important to make a good first impression. Be polite, be courteous, be a little bit reserved at the beginning, tell a joke, come prepared. When you're writing emails, use a first name. Short email, good grammar is important. At a meeting, be structured. Make a joke about yourself, not about others. And then after the meeting, go to a pub, buy a round of drinks, and then hopefully you will have some business with the company. We'll now move to Rob. We have about 10 minutes before our break, Rob. So maybe just an intro, and then I'll stop you at 10:15 for a coffee break, and then we can continue after that. Over to you, Rob.
Hi, everyone. As introduced, I'm Rob Howland, the other half of Coffee Cup Consulting. Again, like Andy, I've been in Slovenia many years, working across a range of companies, most recently selling high-value IT products and services into different countries around the world, be that Middle East, and also we set up an operation in the UK. So hopefully that experience will be very relevant for you guys. I'll start by sharing my screen. So what I'll do is I'll start the presentation off just to let you know where we're going, and then we'll have the coffee break. And to talk to you about British humour, this Accessing the UK comes from a classic British TV programme called Dad's Army, which was basically about all of the old people left at home forming what was called the Home Guard and looking to protect the UK against the Germans during the war. So now it's sort of the UK as separate from the EU. We need to approach it slightly differently in order to access it. But by the same argument, the consumers are still there in the UK, the requirements are still there, and actually the current situation probably provides you with a greater opportunity than before, as companies based in Slovenia looking to offer high-value services into the UK. And I will come to that, but there actually is a greater opportunity on offer, I believe. Effectively, the reason you guys are at this webinar is because you've made a conscious decision that you want to access or increase your business in the UK. You've come from this from different angles, I should guess. Some of you, you've all got a product and a service you believe in. Some of you may do business outside of Slovenia already, but not with the UK. Some of you currently don't, but UK is your number one target, or you currently do business in the UK, but you want to expand it or make it more solid. So saying that, the point we're all coming from, you've made a strategic decision to grow internationally, and the UK is a prime target. So the question is, what do you do now? How do you actually go about it? And what I'll be presenting here that Andy and I worked out is 5-step approach to basically entering the UK market. And it covers getting knowledge about the market, learning about your competition, deciding on the best channels to use, because there are many ways to, to crack this one, and how to identify the future clients, how to actually see who you should be targeting, and then planning that entry into the market. Looking at the time, I don't know how far it makes sense to go, or whether we call the coffee break early, Barbara, before I get halfway into something.
We can do that. We can call a coffee break now, unless you have some questions for the audience. Do you want to ask the audience some questions on how they're prepared to enter the UK market, or if they're in the UK market already, or you want to leave it for later?
Probably later. I mean, what I would say to everyone in the audience is, as I'm going through, if there are any questions that come to mind, pop them down, because between the presentation and what we'd look to talk with later, the more interaction we can have, the better. And if I have a specific example thrown at me, we can use that as a working example to talk about a particular point. So it helps to illustrate what we're saying, and at the same time, it could help solve a specific problem that you have. So, the group gets to see how a problem is solved, how an approach can be taken, and you as the person asking the question gets hopefully some good guidance on where you have a particular issue.
Yeah, thanks. There's a question for Andy. Andy, can you see the chat? It's from Mina.
Yeah, good question. Just bear with me one sec. Suggestions. What I generally try to do is search. If you don't know the person's name for the particular department or the particular person in the company, I would go on LinkedIn and try and find their name. That's what I do 90% of the time, and 90% of the time you will be right. If you don't know the person's name, the lady's name, the gentleman's name, I would just basically put to the head of the marketing department, or something similar, to the managing director, if you don't know his name. Secondly, it's a tricky question whether you write dear, or sometimes you can even write hi Joanna, or hi Samantha. I wouldn't do that in the first email. I would still write dear. I wouldn't put dear sirs. This is very, very formal. And yeah, we were taught that at school, and it's probably grammatically correct, but it comes across as very, very stiff. Maybe in political circles, yes. Maybe EU circles, yes. But in general business, I would keep it relaxed, and I would try and find the name. Dear Helen, dear John. I wouldn't put dear sirs, and I wouldn't put hi at the beginning. I think that can come in the second or third email.
So Andy,
one thing, if I can hop in, one thing I often do, if depending on whether you're dealing with someone very senior, in which case this doesn't work, but if you know that you're dealing sort of on your level, and you can highlight that, you don't know who you're sending it to, you've got an info email address, or you haven't got a specific name, as long as you state perhaps in the address line who your target person is. Sometimes it's good enough just to start with a hello and then explain. It's not hi, which is informal. It's hello, and it's not that horrible dear sir stroke madam, which is a bit of a turn off anyway. You're looking to engage with someone. This is a personal contact, and to say, I think in an email, hello, if you don't know who you're talking to, is fine. It's what you would say on the telephone, even if you didn't know who was at the other end.
Yeah, and also added to that, it's a good point what Rob said. If you've got an info mail, which I really do not like, and you're trying to get to the right, let's say the purchasing manager at a company, and all you've got is an info mail, on the subject, always put in immediately please forward to the purchasing director, European purchasing director, immediately, because it will probably be a receptionist or someone who will get that email immediately, and they probably get thousands of info emails or hundreds of info emails. But if you categorically state, please forward to the managing, or please forward to the UK buying director, it's kind of a statement, and they're much more, I've done research on it, they're much more likely to forward that to that internal person inside the company. Whereas if you write on the subject line, I don't know, new super duper product, it'll probably just be put in the bin. So think about how you would react if you were on the receiving end of an info. So put to the purchasing director, business collaboration, international business collaboration, let's say new unique product. Something very clear and concise, and it grabs your attention, and then at the bottom of the email saying, dear purchasing director, this is what I do and this is what I'm doing at the moment. If you don't know their name, 9 times out of 10 they will get it and they will respond.